Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
We're all set, cocked, locked. Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. We're delighted you're in class with us today. We broadcast 2 hours from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains, right here from the farm, off the grid. And if you'd like to call us, we'll pay for the call. 866-582-9933. And the listen line may be operational. And if it is, you can try it. 605-477-3249. 605-477-3249. We've been having some problems with it. And we've contacted Zeno Radio and let them know. And they've been working on it. So maybe it's up and running. I don't know. I haven't checked it this morning, but I will during the broadcast. Today, Kurt Wilson's with us. He'll be with us for 2 hours. Survival Enterprises. SE, the1.US. Welcome, Kurt.
Good morning, Vinny. What's happening?
Hey, Kurt. You know, I was thinking about you yesterday. And the reason I say that is I was at the local farm supply. And this actually is a chain. And they had out front pallets of T-posts. Now, these T-posts are those green fence posts that have barbed wire on them, class. Typically, they have barbed wire on them. And you pound them in with this tube. And it's like maybe a 3-inch piece of pipe that might be 2 feet long. It's got a cap welded on the end of it. And you slide it over the end of the fence post, and you line it up vertically. And you make it plumb, and then you pound it down with this maybe 20-pound piece of pipe. And, you know, we use them a lot, and they bend and they break off sometimes, and we're adding fencing and cross-fencing all over the farm. Well, they typically sell for $5.79. They had a few pallets of them, and they were $2.49. I thought, wow.
Stock up.
Yeah. That's what I did. I stocked up, and so I bought a pallet load. And a pallet load is... Yeah, that's why I was thinking of you. I mean,
I know, someday you'll need them.
Yeah. And I was thinking of you because I was thinking, you know, I'll bet you Kurt has a tough time buying one of anything. And is that true?
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, it is. And sometimes my wife looks at me like I'm out of my mind. To give you an example, and this justifies why we do this. We go to yard sales up here in North Idaho. That's as soon as it stops snowing, we wait for the first yard sale to pop up because we have Californians that move up here, and they think that they're getting a hell of a deal, and it's going to be the greatest time of their life, and they're going to love to go skiing and snowing, and then they get stuck in 8 feet of snow, and it's cold and windy, and they after the winter ends, they say, I'm getting the hell out of here, and they start selling their stuff for nothing. So I go to this one yard sale, and this guy has a box. It's 12 complete doorbell set, right? It's got the doorbell, the transformer, the button, 50 feet of wire. It's 12 sets, $5. And my wife goes, what the hell do you need that for? I said, because doorbells go out. And she goes, no, come on. Right. One doorbell set's $35 over at Home Depot.
Sure.
So I got 12 for $5. So I stick them in my shed, and a year later, my doorbell goes out. So I walk out, grab a kit, walk in, install everything, and just for the heck of it, put in a new button on the front of the house. Everything's perfect. It's okay. And then I sell what I have left. I kept one of them and sold the other 10 for $20 at a yard sale.
Yeah, great. Well, I can't say that I can match that. I only have 2 sets of doorbells. But the funny thing is, we've only been here 12 years, and I've never installed them. I've got the wire run through the stone. It's all ready. I mean, all I have to do is hook them up. But no one comes to the front door. No one has ever come to the front door. So I haven't installed it. I mean, this is kind of the way it is. People come to the back door at our house. I'm not sure why that is, but that even, well, actually, that's not true. There was a gal who came from the U.S. Census who ended up at the front door. And I knew she was a foreigner because she came to the front door. But, yeah, you know, those people don't leave you alone. I mean, they keep sending them. And finally they gave up. When it took about, I guess, darn close to an hour of me telling him, no, I'm not going to provide anything that's not required by law. No, I'm not going to provide anything that's not required by law, over and over and over. And she went through most of the questions on the census. And, you know, they have the Paperwork Reduction Act, and that darn thing is like, I don't know, 8 pages long.
What a
8
joke.
pages.
I was a master gunsmith for 25 years, and we had a gun shop. And I had the 4473 form you fill out, the yellow sheet. It was always one page. I mean, the form you fill out was on the front of this piece of paper, and on the back of it was the instructions for filling it out. And then they passed the Paperwork Reduction Act, and they had 3 more pages to explain the Paperwork Reduction Act. So now we have exactly like 4 pages. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was talking about the government, and I'm not sure this is a government organization or not, but the United States Postal Service. So I was talking to a guy last couple of days, and he knows this gal who is middle-aged, and she works at the U.S. Postal Service at the local branch where he lives. And he says, yeah, and he sees her all the time. He's there every day mailing packages and picking up his mail. He says, yeah, I'm going to be gone for, about a week, maybe 2 weeks. She says, oh, where are you going? He says, Hawaii. So she said, wow, how long does it take to drive there? and the guy behind him says, well, he can only drive halfway there.
Then you take a bus.
And then he has to stop. and so she doesn't get it that you can't drive to Hawaii from Missouri. And this is a Postal Service employee. Now this is someone who handles mail all the time, and I'm sure letters and packages, get dropped off there that say Hawaii on them. And how is it possible that you can get a job at the United States Postal Service and not know that Hawaii is off the coast of the West Coast, and you have to get on
1,000 miles or so. Well, the problem with the post office is that they have hiring requirements that have nothing to do with intelligence or knowledge. And my uncle actually was a postman. He retired after 30 years in the Postal Service, and he would lament greatly about that. Let's just put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, the closing statement that she made to him as he was leaving is, well, at least you don't have to drive nonstop. It's just, I can't understand it. I'm thinking 4th grade.
And these people vote.
Yeah, they do. They do. I'm thinking in 4th grade, I knew that you couldn't drive to Hawaii. Anyway, so I was having breakfast this morning, and just out of the blue, I said to Mrs. Finelli, I said, did you... I brought up French toast. And I said, when you were younger, did you ever have cinnamon toast? And what that is a combination of sugar mixed with cinnamon on top of toast. And that sometimes maybe butter, but mostly toast with cinnamon and sugar sprinkled on top of it.
Yeah,
And
that's what I ate every single day in high school.
Yeah.
I
And
had four pieces of bread, toasted, buttered, and cinnamon on it, and that and a glass of milk. That's all I ate.
yeah. And that's the way it was when we were younger. And so she said, but, my great-grandmother, for a treat, we'd go over to her house and we'd have a piece of bread with sugar on it. Now, the reason I'm mentioning that is life has really changed. I don't know anyone today who has a piece of bread with sugar on it for a treat. And what I'm trying to say is that wouldn't be considered a treat anymore. A treat might be something a lot more expensive than that. So life was a lot simpler back then in my wife's great-grandmother's eyes than it is today. And I'm not so sure that all the things that we do are, all that much better for us. I think it'd be nice to be a little more simple, a little more slow, a little more calm, a little more deliberate than this fast-paced, rapid lifestyle that many of us have. What are your thoughts on that?
You use the word deliberate, and I can tell you that amongst all of the others is the most, it should have the highest priority. Because what people do is, let's say they're going to drive a car. If you drive it deliberately, meaning with intention and purpose, then that's what you do, is drive the car. Not eat a sandwich, put your makeup on, poke your phone, change the station on a radio a dozen times, look in your rearview mirror and bitch because some guy's following you too close. It's like people don't drive their vehicles anymore deliberately. They just get in their vehicle, and that is a piece of the physical universe that they hold a position in from point A to point B. It's almost as if they're not really in charge of it. We see it all the time up here.
Yeah.
Accidents all the time. People who are doing other things than just driving a car.
Yeah, and sometimes they're in a 3,000-pound missile. Sometimes they're in a 4,000-pound missile. Sometimes they're in an 18-wheel missile. Right. It's dangerous, and it's unacceptable. We'll be right back. Kurt Wilson's with us. SE1.us is his website. And Mackenzie's engineering the broadcast. Kurt Wilson's with us. Kurt, back to those fence posts. I want to tell you a little bit of the thought behind it. Do I really need a pallet of metal fence posts? Yeah, I do. Do I need them right this moment? No. Are they going to cost more later? Yes. So I bought them, but there's another component that went into this decision. And, when I came home, I mentioned to Mrs. Fennell, we, our son and I bought some fence posts. And she's like, don't we have some? I said, yeah, we do, but we probably only have a half a pallet left. And so here's what went into it. We sold some cows. And that's what we do. We raise cows. And every time we sell cows, the government, is kind of salivating, saying, you know what, that's great. Finelli sold some cows, and we're going to take our cut off the top. Well, I'm not going to let them do that. So I had a chance to reduce the amount that they want to steal from me. I'm talking about the federal government and state government. So when I have expenses, farm expenses, they are tax deductions. Now, here's what goes into this. Well, the federal government is considering eliminating some of our tax deductions. I mean, in order to lower our taxes, allegedly, they're going to remove some of our deductions. I'm not quite sure how that works, but that's what they want to do. So for some of us, our taxes will go up under the illusion that they're lowering our taxes. So by buying these fence posts, I now have more expenses. But these are things I need, okay? I don't need them right this second, but I will soon. How soon, I'm not sure. But I'm going to need them, and it's my decision as the CEO of this farm operation that we buy these raw materials or supplies that I need. Well, if I'm wrong, well, I made a mistake. And lots of CEOs make mistakes. But I'm going to minimize intentionally how much I pay in taxes. And I can do that. And that's a business decision. And you can too. And class, I really think that you should consider starting your own business so that you don't let these bandits steal your hard-earned, we'll call it money.
Yeah,
seriously.
For want of a better term. The last time I ever worked for somebody else was in 1980. I was a quality control engineer for Hewlett-Packard. I helped build the Roseville plant in Northern California. And I realized I was going to be nothing more than a drone for the rest of my life. And whether you're a whopper flopper, work the drive-up window at McDonald's, or restock bananas at Walmart, that's all you're going to be is a drone the rest of your life. And I said, you know what? I'm done with it. Mm-hmm. And I took hold of my life at that point and said, that's it. I am going to do what I can to make money. And from that moment on, I never, ever, ever, ever worried about an income, ever. And it's
interesting that you say that. It's so interesting that you say that. And here's why. Now, for someone who might be playing the devil's advocate, and I do want to make sure that everyone understands, I am not playing the devil's advocate. But for someone else who might be playing the devil's advocate, they might say, Kurt Wilson, are you kidding me? What you really need is job security. You need to find that big company and settle within that company and grow with that company, and that is job security. But the answer is there's nothing farther from the truth in terms of job security. There is no job
security like when you work for someone else.
Right.
There is none. I don't care what anybody says. You're not in control of your income. You're in control of your production level, but you're not in control of your income. That company can sell. That company can go out of business, and then there you are. And that company can say, you know, we got these guys over 55 years old, and we're gonna have to start paying more in hospital fees and insurance and stuff like that. Let's just fire them and hire these 21-year-olds.
Yeah,
that work for half the price, and that's what happens all over the world, not just here.
Mm-hmm. I considered my dad a really, really smart guy when he was alive. But there were a couple things that I thought he had wrong. But it was based on what he saw in his life. And he said, you know, Vinny, what you do is you work really hard at school. And, you perform really well. Then you get a job, a good job with a big company. Then you work really hard, 40 hours a week for that big company. And then you can become boss and work hard 60 hours a week for that big company. And he said, how about, working for GM or IBM or Bell Labs at the time? And I said, Dad, are you kidding? IBM's laying off 15,000 a week. 15,000 a week. There's no security there, Dad. And so that's when I taught my dad about the lack of job security. We'll be right back. Kurt Wilson's with us. Hey, Kurt, Sunday, I'm going to be on the radio with you on your show.
Yep. ArmchairSurvivalist.com. For those of you interested. And Vince and I are friends, real good. We're good friends. Let's just put it that way. So, and we're brothers in arms, and have been for decades and decades and decades, apparently, unbeknownst to me. But that's fine. You'll find compatriots anywhere in the world you'll go, and you'll find somebody who has the same mindset you do in San Salvador, or in France, or in Canada. And it's great when you find him in your own country. But yes, he's going to be with me, ArmchairSurvivalist.com. I'm a investigative journalist, and my show is every Sunday. It's hosted by Scriptures. I just went blank. Scriptures for America. They are the world's largest shortwave Christian broadcasting network, and it'll be on. I'm on from 2 to 4 Pacific time. Even though I'm in North Idaho, it's still kind of weird. We're not Mountain Time; we're Pacific time. So Vince is going to be on 3 to 4 in the second hour, and what time is that? That's 5 to 6 o'clock your time, or it's 2 hours difference.
Mm-hmm,
4 to 5.
Right, 5 to 6. Yeah, 5
to 6. Okay,
I believe it's 5 to 6. Mm-hmm.
You're Central. Yeah. So Vince is going to be on my show for a change, and we're going to talk.
I'm all excited about that.
We're going to talk about lubricants, but you know how that works. We start, and then we go into these tangents like crazy. Like right now, I'm
and we might even talk about lubricant.
Yeah, and we I'm perusing your website right now, usaprepares.com, and I noticed that you have on November 1st you did an interview on CBD oil.
Yeah,
remember that? Yeah, Glenn.
And thanks to you. Yes, thanks to you. You called me and you said, "Hey, are you trying it? What are you doing with CBD?" Well, I've got it right here in the studio with me. And during the commercial break, I took 2 pumps of CBD oil. Seriously, swished it around for 60 seconds. I got to tell you, you wanted me to be on oil of oregano. I did. I started getting better, and had a respiratory problem. That just wouldn't go away. And CBD oil. Glenn Parnham came on, and so between you and Glenn Parnham, I'm on CBD oil, and I got to tell you, it absolutely, in my opinion, absolutely, positively works. That's available from you on your website, right?
Yeah, I have a special. Now, as an investigative journalist, I don't just look at something and go, "Oh, that's interesting," and then write a little article on it. I research it, and my son and I, Eric, spent the last year and a half researching industrial hemp plants and CBD, and we actually went to Las Vegas and met with all of the manufacturers. I mean, all of them, all the manufacturers and importers. There was a trade show there, and I discovered that I know more than 95% of these people do. So I found a special CBD. I don't want to step on your toes on the CBD thing, but there's information people need to have.
Share with us.
Okay. You go to CBD, Charlie Bravo David, cbdsupply.us, and it talks to you about the different compounds in industrial hemp plants. See, people get this, and this is the government's doing this on purpose, and they're confusing people with the word marijuana and hemp and CBD, saying, "Oh, that's marijuana." The truth of the matter is, so let me educate real quick. The truth of the matter is, the hemp plant has a stalk that's probably 2 inches diameter. And when you add the branches, if you would, and the leaves, the whole plant is maybe a 1.5 feet diameter, but it's 20 to 40 feet high. And that sure as hell doesn't look like a marijuana plant. A marijuana plant is about 8 to 10 feet in diameter and about 10 feet high. See, the hemp plant, this is the plant where rope comes from. This is the plant, the Gutenberg Bible was printed on hemp paper. Our Constitution is printed on hemp paper. Until the 30s, hemp was the largest cash crop in the United States. Everybody grew it. And when the colonists first came to America, they were mandated to grow hemp for His Majesty's Navy. You make clothing out of it. You make oil out of it. There's a long story on the thing, and I've written many articles on it. But it's like this hemp has always been around, millions of years. About 1,000 years ago, a couple Chinamen got together and said, now I'm paraphrasing this and making it short, and said, look at that hemp plant over there. A couple of those leaves look a little mutated. Wonder what'll happen if we dry them and smoke them. And they got a little high. So they figured, let's breed the hemp plant specifically for the ingredient that makes you high, the hallucinogenics. That's where marijuana came from. It's under the genus Cannabis sativa. So it's there's many different plants. There's marijuana, there's industrial hemp, and there's a few others. But these basic plants, the hemp plant and Cannabis sativa, they have well over 500 nutrients in them. And in marijuana, THC is the highest. In industrial hemp, CBD is the highest. So if you get CBD, you want it derived from the hemp plant, not the marijuana, because otherwise you'll have too much THC, and THC makes you goofy, as some of us hippies remember. The CBD, though, is the medicinal part. And I'm telling you, Vince, I'm astounded on a daily basis. I designed our product. It's Seeds of Life. I designed it. I work with a woman farmer in Colorado. This is where our product comes from. She's attached to the University of Colorado and authorized to grow and market this under the 2014, 15, 16, and 17 Food and Agricultural Bill. She's what's called an experimental farm. So my product is the freshest on earth. It's not imported. and it only has 2 ingredients. It has organic hemp seed oil and CBD oil. But there's a lot of different places popping up all over the United States selling CBD, and I can tell you this, it works. I don't care, I don't care what kind you get. It will help somebody somewhere. I stand in my store on Government Way, and everybody laughs when I tell them, well, my store is Government Way because I'm so anti-government. I'm rabid. But it's on Government Way in Hayden, Idaho, and I have people come in. It's almost every day that tears come to my eyes. A woman comes in with fibromyalgia. Now, I can't stand there and say, oh, this will cure that, this will blah, blah, blah. I can't do that. The government doesn't like us to do that. Instead, I tell them, go to my website, cbdsupply.us. At the top of the page, there's a link that says Knowledge Base. It tells you the history, and it gives you links to over 1,800 actual medical studies. Woman comes in with fibromyalgia, and she's complaining because she can only wear silk and satin clothes because her skin hurts all the time. And she tells me, now this is her words, I sweat like a pig. So she wants to try CBD. And she'd already tried this stuff in Washington. Now, Washington legalized medical marijuana, so is Oregon, so is California. The CBD there is derived out of the marijuana plant. So it's not the right mixture of ingredients. So she takes it home with her, and 2 weeks later comes back and she's wearing a cotton dress, and she says, this is great. This stuff is great. The pain in my skin is gone. And I said, good. So you here to get more for yourself? And she goes, no, I'm here for my damn husband. I go, why? What's wrong with him? And he goes, well, I had neuropathy up to my knees, and I've been stealing 1 drop a day from her, and my neuropathy's gone. And then we have the woman who had stage 4 cancer, and she came in and got the very potent one that we have. We have the strongest on earth, and she gets that, and she, because for her pain. So she gets it, and she goes away, and she comes back a month later, and she's chipper and happy and everything, and she buys another bottle. I said, so this is working for you? And she goes, oh yeah. My cancer is disappearing, and my doctor doesn't know why because I refuse chemotherapy. And then the dogs. Now, you know that CBD works on every mammal on Earth, from mice to moose. And my son informed me also dolphins. And in Israel, there's over 60,000 published studies on CBD oil and uses, especially on animals. So I designed an oil for animals. It's called Critter Care. And it has a special plastic eyedropper in case the dog or cat or whatever bites down. And a woman comes in, and she goes, I got this 10-year-old lab, and it's dragging its back end. It doesn't work. Its legs don't work. And it's pooping and peeing everywhere. And I know it's dying. I know it's in pain, so I want to get some of this, and because it helps with the pain, right? And I go, yeah, it does. So she buys a bottle for her dog. 2 weeks later, she comes in, and she comes up to the counter, and she goes, I don't think the damn thing's going to die. I go, what? She goes, yeah, it's starting to walk right now. And we got diapers we put on it, and it's healing. This is really weird. So when you mention the CBD, and I see this thing on your website, there's more I can talk about this. We don't need to.
Well, I've got a couple comments. We had two German Shepherds. We had 2 German Shepherds, and we got them at the same time. And we were told by the veterinarian in Virginia, what you do is, you need to have these flea and tick chemicals and put them between their shoulders. And what we found out was one of them, the hind legs stopped working. At the same time, the other one became incontinent. So we had a male and a female. And so we experienced what you're talking about. And I really wish I knew about hemp oil, because we would have used that to treat both of these animals who succumbed to, their body stopped working. And I believe it was caused by fipronil, which is the ingredient in the flea and tick chemical that's put between the shoulders. We would never use that again. Kurt Wilson, I'll be right back. Kurt Wilson's with us. SE1.US, the website. Also, there's another website, armchairsurvivalist.com. Armchair armchairsurvivalist.com, and that will get you to the site that will help you listen to us on Sunday, and that'd be 5 o'clock.
Also on that site there, armchairsurvivalist.com, you just go there and click on Listen Live in the chat room, and there's a chat room there. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, how come you don't have a chat room, but the chat room, you can listen live in there if you sign up, and it's not intrusive whatsoever. Then you can ask questions, make comments, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And listen to us there. And then I have a archive that you can go and download the show also afterwards.
Mm-hmm. I want to share something with you. In the banking world, in the credit card banking world, I'm what's called a deadbeat, which is the exact opposite of what you might think. A deadbeat would be someone who doesn't pay his bills. Well, in the banking credit card world, a deadbeat is someone who doesn't pay monthly interest. Someone who says, you know what, I'm not going to pay the whole statement. I'll just pay the minimum, and then the interest just keeps clicking up and up and up, and you just keep paying more and more and more. Well, I don't do that, so I pay the statement amount in full. Well, last year, December, the statement came in, and as always, we had an AT&T Universal Credit Card for decades. Every month, we pay the full statement and zero it out every single month. Well, we did the same thing in December. Christmas mail delayed by just a couple days the credit card bank from receiving the payment, the check. Well, they hit us with a $25 late fee, and I mentioned this on the air. And so I sent a note along with the payment, the check, saying we're paying this in full, but not the $25 late fee, because we didn't cause it. We didn't do it. I mean, it was the postal delays that did it, okay? And I thought for sure that after calling and saying, hey, can you take care of this? No, we can't do that. Well, that's because AT&T's Universal Card was taken over by Citibank, C-I-T-I, Bank. Well, we called and those fees amounted to about $300 by about 2 months ago. So from last December, till just a couple months ago, the original $25 late fee kept climbing and climbing to about $300. We'd call and they'd say, okay, we can take off this $170 fees and penalties, but we can't stop the $25 original fee. Well, it kept climbing, and we kept getting calls, multiple calls per day from Citibank, and they were harassing us. Well, I couldn't get this thing to stop, so I sent them a letter. Now, and the reason I'm telling you all this, class, is because this worked. The phone calls didn't work. So what I did was I disputed the $25. Now, let's say you go and you buy something, and they charge you twice for it. Well, you can write to your credit card bank, and you just can dispute the overcharge. And it will probably be resolved in your favor, unless the merchant says, no, that was a valid charge. And then you keep writing letters back and forth. And whoever gives up first loses. Okay? Well, all I did was write one letter to the bank disputing the original $25 late charge. And I have in my hands a letter that came back from Citibank. Vincent Finelli, preferred MasterCard account. Dear Vincent Finelli, in response to your recent inquiry concerning your preferred MasterCard account, our records reflect that the balance on the above account is $0.00. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to call or write our office. G. Goldberg, Vice President, Citibank, N.A. There you have it. They gave up. And all it did was take one letter. But until that point, 2 calls a day, harassing us. And the statements kept piling up with more and more charges. Now, we don't have any more of that AT&T Universal Card, which we loved, because Citibank destroyed our confidence in that card, all by themselves. We'll be right back. Kurt Wilson's with us. We're going to talk about lubricants, things you need to know. Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Kurt Wilson's with us. Website is armchairsurvivalist.com. Armchairsurvivalist.com. And Kurt, the reason I was mentioning the credit card dispute last hour, and I just want to go through this very quickly. If you have a charge on your credit card and it does not belong there, and you can write a letter to your credit card company and tell them the reason for your dispute of that charge. Well, in my case, they kept reporting me to credit bureaus. They threatened to report me to the credit bureaus. There are 3 of them, and that would affect my insurance rate. Well, I had this dilemma. I absolutely positively was not going to pay the $25 late fee that was caused by the U.S. Postal Service. Okay, I wasn't going to pay it because I didn't cause it. Well, it was impacting my credit rating. Well, that impacts your insurance rates. Okay, well, after disputing with one letter to Citibank, I got another letter, and it says, "Dear Vincent Finelli, we requested the consumer reporting agencies to delete the accounts from your credit report. We forwarded the information to the following agencies: Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian." So what they did was they removed these bashes that they did to us, saying that we were not paying our credit card bills, and we were, but they kept increasing these fees based on the delay in the Postal Service for paying our bill through the U.S. Postal Service. Bottom line is, class, you may decide that you have a situation where you want to dispute, that's the word you use, dispute, a charge on your credit card, and you will probably win. If you are in the right, you will probably win. And the rule is pretty much this: whoever gives up first loses. So if it's between you and a merchant, and you receive something defective and the merchant tells you stuff it, or they're not going to take care of it, they're not going to help you, if you dispute it and you write the letter and the merchant doesn't respond, you win. If the merchant responds and says, "No, I sent it, it was perfectly good," then you respond saying, "No, it wasn't, here's a picture of it," then you win until the merchant comes back and says, "No, it really was fine." And whoever gives up first loses. And that's as simple as
pretty
it
much.
is. Yeah.
And that's it's very important. Many people, they get a credit card bill, they said, "Here, honey, pay this." That's it. They don't look at it. You have to look at your credit card charges. You really, really do, because let's say somehow your card gets compromised. Well, the first thing they do, the hackers will do, is determine whether or not you actually pay attention to your credit card bill. And they will do a charge for like 37 cents or $1.19. And if you don't dispute that little charge, then they're going to go ahead and they're going to wipe out your account. So pay attention to every charge that's on your bill. We get calls all the time at Survival Enterprises, my company. A guy calls up and says, "Hey, I don't know who you are, and there's a charge here for $137. So we keep files and we look them up real quick and go, "Oh, you're John Hancock. Yeah, you bought 5 gallons of colloidal silver from us 2 months ago." "Oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry." Boom. Yep. You can communicate. And that's the thing. You communicate. On the back of your credit card, on the back of every single credit and debit card is a phone number. And if you have a problem, you can call them. I do. I don't like writing letters because then usually it gets circular filed or ignored for months on end. So I make a phone call. And I don't deal with the Indians. I deal with the chiefs. So I go upstairs. And I say, "This is a problem." We just had the same thing you did. I said it was $37. And it was, we have this pay, I forgot what it's called, bill pay service, where my wife goes into a specific secure server online and pays all our bills that way. And that company then physically sends the checks to the people that we're paying. This company sort of dropped the ball on a few $5,000 and $6,000 checks. So weeks after we had sent these checks out, or she'd gone onto the website and said send the checks out, the company still hadn't got the checks, and they started charging us. We're talking in the hundreds of dollars. And it's real simple. My wife contacted each of the companies, and communication is the great solvent. Yes. It dissolves all problems. So communicate. Don't just bitch and complain. So my wife called the companies and told them what's happening and that she was going to take care of it. Then she called the bill pay company and ripped them a new one. And the bill pay company contacted the other companies. the bill pay company either paid or got forgiven those late charge and had everything explained. I hate it when I put my life, my livelihood, and my trust in a third party that screws it up. And that's
okay.
That's what you have to do when you're using credit, or when you're using fiat payments like paper checks or even cash for that matter.
Let me give an example of one more thing that happened in class. You may be having this too, and then we'll get on to lubricants. So we had a credit card issued, with the name of Casey's MasterCard. It was kind of like 7-Eleven, but there are a bunch of gas stations and convenience stores around here called Casey's, Caseys. And so we had this card, and we would get like a percentage back in gas cards, $20 gas cards for using this card for all kinds of purchases. So it was kind of like a cash back, but it was not in cash, it was in gasoline dollars, okay, that you could use at Casey's. Well, what was happening is we would get the statement in the mail from the post office box. We'd go home, write the check, mail it, and it would be late. And then we'd get a $25 late fee from the bank. And then it would happen month after month after month, and we'd call them and they'd say sorry, and eventually they stopped saying that they would take care of it. So what we realized was, and I'm going to give you an example. Now this may not be the exact dates, but on the first of the month they print the statements. Then the statements kind of lie around at the bank until maybe the 20th of the month. Then they mail them out. Then you get them on the 25th of the month. You pay them on the 26th of the month, and they're late because they have a 25-day period from which from the printing of the statement to when they receive it. So the checks that you send them are always going to be late, no matter what. And then you get the late fee. And I think the banks were doing this, or this particular bank was doing it on purpose. Well, I called the chief financial officer of Casey's, and I said, I want to let you know what's going on. You've got your name on the front of this credit card. And people like me are getting mad at guess who? Casey's. We're not getting mad at the bank that issues it, that little tiny print on the back. We're getting mad at you. And because we think you are ripping us off. And we know it's not really you, but not everybody knows that. Just wanted to let you know. So I had this, and I've got his name and number in my Rolodex, and we would chat. And I said, in one call, I said to him, you don't have to use this particular bank. Do you know what? They stopped using that bank. That complaint. I said, I used to work for a credit card bank, and here's what happens. Here's how it works. And I explained the whole thing to him. And he got frosted, not at me, but at what his bank was doing and tarnishing the Casey's name. They dumped that particular credit card issuer with the Casey's name on the front of the card. Absolute true story. So, class, your influence counts. Please use it. And sometimes you can have, dramatic results, like the one I just told you about. Absolutely true story. So, Craig.
Persistence.
Lubricants. Lubricants.
Okay, lubricant.
Yeah.
A lubricant. Now, people think, oh, yeah, I know what a lubricant is. Well, let me tell you what it is. It's a substance, and originally organic, introduced to reduce friction between surfaces in mutual contact, which ultimately reduces the heat generated when the surfaces move, like in a motor. Mm-hmm. It may also have the function of transmitting forces, transporting foreign particles, or heating or cooling the surfaces. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's what a lubricant is, and it covers all kinds of different things that have two surfaces that are pressing against each other. If you don't have a lubricant, these surfaces pressing against each other create friction, which in turn creates heat, which in turn breaks down the surfaces. They have found lubrication in chariot 1,400 years before the birth of Christ, and they were just fatty deposits from animals that they would wipe on the axles. So lubricants are used for all kinds of different things, and they were originally organic, like pig fat, that kind of stuff. The prairie wagons that came across the United States, that people, the Conestoga wagons and stuff, they would have buckets of animal fat hanging below the wagons, and they would, each time they would stop, they would take a brush and they would smear some on the axles of the giant wheels from those Conestoga wagons, and that was standard. And in some old movies, you can actually still see that. You'll see a wagon that has this bucket hanging underneath of it, and people generally don't know what that is. But to be true, they have to put that in the movie. And so the lubricants that were used worldwide were mostly organic until about 1870 or so. There was a company trying to distill kerosene in a certain manner. And after they distilled this kerosene, they realized there was a glop, for want of a better term, left over. And they thought, what is this stuff? And it was really slippery. And it maintained its slipperiness through testing of heat and motion. And that's where they started using oil-based lubricant. And that was in the late 1870s.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about lubricants with Kurt Wilson. ArmchairSurvivalist.com. We'll be right back. Kurt Wilson's with us, and he's teaching us about lubricants. We're talking about the Conestoga wagons, the bucket that hung from the wagons, and please continue, Kurt.
Yeah, just that guy that discovered a distillation of kerosene that was gooey could be used as a lubricant instead of using organic lubricants, ended up in a few years becoming Mobil Oil. Yeah, big long story on that. And when I do a show, by the way, everybody at ArmchairSurvivalist.com, when I do a show, I post my show notes. So you'll have the ability when we do this show, because we're going to do the same show kind of on Sunday, that if we get around to it, on lubricants. And I will have I'll have the information posted on it. But there's many different lubricants out there. And again, people just kind of blow past this. But if you look at any man, and I mean man, I don't mean some wussy millennial, I mean like Vincent or me, you look at any man's shop, you're going to find a dozen different types of lubricants out there. WD-40 is not a lubricant. WD-40 is a water displacement. That's what WD stands for. And many people think, oh, WD-40, I'll just spray something with a lubricant. No, it has its own job. You have spray lubricants. You have the kind you get jars of grease, little tubs of different types of grease, molybdenum grease and Teflon grease, and these are what you use to repack bearings with and wheels. And some of these lubricants, and lubricants could be anything from real lightweight oil that you put a drop between your finger and thumb and roll it around, and it could barely be seen and felt, to thick goo that would go in oil drilling, and on the pipes and the drills and stuff. They use that kind of stuff. So there's many different types of oil that you can use, or lubricants, and each one, you'll have a different place for them. There's special lubricants for the fan bearings on little computer fans, and there's special lubricants for your rear end, and there's special lubricants for the inside of your motor, and there's special lubricants, for all kinds of stuff. Yeah, yesterday, somebody came in my door. Now, it was like 32 degrees outside yesterday, and somebody came in my steel swinging door at the store, and it's like, ew. So, see, what happens in cold and heat, metal expands and contracts. So when it gets cold, it contracts, and then things that squeak really start squeaking. So I have a can of this special Teflon spray that I got, and I go out there and done. It's fixed. Mm-hmm. People don't use lubricants unless they're really trained on them. How many of you out there have a car that you open the door and it's like, all right? Well, lubricant, oil it.
That's a really bad situation.
Yeah.
Letting your car door squeak like that wears out the hinges. And here's what happens.
That's right.
The next thing that happens is the door sags. Then you can't close the door. And all you had to do to prevent that was lubricate the door hinges. And so here's what happens. Literally, class, people who are really meticulous about keeping their car looking clean will wash inside the door, the door posts where the hinges are. They want that to look absolutely meticulous. What happens is water gets into the hinges, displaces the lubricant that's there, causes the hinges to squeak, causes the hinge pins to wear, then the door sags. Literally, you'd probably be better off not washing those hinges. And then you won't have that problem. But if you do wash them, make sure you lubricate them.
That's it. Well, yeah, and this is a major thing. And I teach people, if you hear something or a sound stops being heard, there's something wrong. So pay attention immediately. Don't just say, well, I'll take care of that down the road. Down the road ends up blocking your wheels. I did that when I was younger. I had a 1951 Ford milk truck and that I turned into a little camper, and I was driving up to Oregon. So on the way up there, I'm hearing this. And I'm, what the hell is that? Ah, well, it's nothing. I don't feel any shaking or anything. I'll just keep going. And it kept getting louder and louder and louder. All of a sudden, bam, my wheels locked up. It was a front wheel bearing going out. And if I'd have listened to that 10 miles earlier, I could have pulled off to a repair shop and had a bearing replaced. Instead, I had to spend a day on the highway doing it myself.
Yeah. And so now Kurt and I pull the wheels off and check the wheel bearings. Yeah, that's what we do. Right. We'll be right back. Kurt Wilson's teaching us about lubricants. Kurt, one of the things I'd like to share with our class today is that I reuse oil. Maybe not in the way many might think, but let me just define what I'm saying. So if I have a gasoline engine and I use synthetic lubricant, synthetic oil in that engine, what I do is I will, at the proper drain interval, I will drain that oil into a clean container. And then I will pour that oil, when it's cool, back into the original 4 or 5 quart plastic jug that it came in. And I'll take a permanent marker and I'll write used oil on there. And then what I'll do is I'll let it set for about a month undisturbed. And what happens is the heavy particles settle to the bottom. Then I can pour it off very carefully into another clean container that fresh motor oil came in. And what I'll use that for is, let's say I have a baler that has chains on it that drive the mechanisms and the gears and the pulleys and so forth. I will lubricate those chains with that oil. Why? Because they're going to get dusty anyway. And this oil is great oil, and the heavy particles have settled out of it. Sometimes I use a coffee filter to filter, or 2 of them, one on top of the next, to further filter the oil. But in addition to that, let's say I'm drilling holes in metal. I will lubricate the drill bits often. I mean really often. Before I start, I lubricate that spot I'm going to drill. I stop when I'm drilling. I cool off the tip with another drop of oil, and then another drop, and another drop, and so forth. And what I'm saying is the drill bits, you can drill hundreds of holes in metal if you keep the drill bits, the tips cool. And you can use oil for that. So you can use used oil for that. Now, I don't really like using black diesel engine oil that's been used. That's kind of messy. But from a gas engine, it works great. Any comments on that?
Yeah. Now, you're just talking about synthetic oil, not normal oil?
Well, I even use what's previously been called dyno oil. Yes, conventional and synthetic, but mostly I use synthetic oils. Okay.
What happens with lubricants is it's called lubricity, meaning its ability to stay slippery, for want of a better term, and thickness. You have the word viscosity, which mainly means thickness of or strength of thickness. And like you have different grades of oil. We're talking about internal combustion motors here, basically. You would have 20 grade oil, which is basically 3-in-1 oil, which you would put on sewing machines and things like that. And then it gets up into 40 grade and 50 grade even sometimes 60, and then 90 grade. And as it goes, the numbers go up, the thicker the stuff is. So some things have sloppier tolerances, like rear ends. And you can use a thicker grade oil. When you're working with tight tolerances, like firearms, you have to have lighter grade oil. But the oils tend to break down, meaning their ability. Well, it's like if you've changed oil, you put in like 30 grade oil into a motor, and then after a few thousand miles or more, you decide to change the oil, and you pop the plug, and it drains into a pan, and it's black. It's black because the oil's destroyed. It's burnt. Yeah, there's no more protection left in that stuff. And at that point, and that's what diesel oil is not really good for reusing unless you burn it in a oil burner for heat, because it breaks down so fast. And when you get the oil that's black, you're not going to reuse that stuff unless you can, again, use it to burn for heat.
Right, and that's why I mentioned gasoline engine motor oil.
Yeah,
rather
so
than that's what I reuse. I don't use diesel engine oil.
So you can reuse it for all different things. My grandfather never threw oil away, ever. He would, exactly like you do, he would take it out, but he filtered it when it was warm. And he got all the chunks out. First thing he'd do is he had a magnet that he ran through it. Mm-hmm. And if he found metal particles, you're like, oh, crap, that's a whole new can of worms.
Sure.
Got to find out where that metal's coming from.
Right.
But they would filter that oil down, and they would use it for everything. They would use it for to wash. They used it to wash wheel bearings in.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you don't use solvent or gasoline. They would actually use the oil, the old filtered oil, to wash other metal particles in. They would, when they were rebuilding motors, they would use that oil to wash off parts of the engine. In their tractors, they used it for lubricating all of the different wear surfaces. We had to do this. We were poor. I mean, we were poor. You were talking about a piece of bread with sugar on it was great. When our clan got together, and there's usually like 50 to 100 of us, it was a spaghetti feed because we couldn't. And if we were lucky, there were meatballs, but most of the time it was just spaghetti, and it was all handmade. Everything was. But the oil loses as it heats up. It loses its viscosity. It becomes thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. When I was a kid, I used to go to the gas stations, and between the gas pumps there were these racks that had these glass quarts of green oil, and had a little nozzle.
25 cents.
Yeah, and it's because cars smoked like crazy because the oil wasn't thick enough to protect the cylinder walls from the scraping up and down of the rings on the pistons. So every time I filled up with gas, I'd buy another quart of oil. I had a 48 Dodge pickup, 6-cylinder, and every time I filled up, I'd pour a quart of oil in there, and it was cool. You just give the guy a quarter, Kendall oil, and pour it in there. Kendall oil, by the way, is now Conoco. Over the years, it got bought out, but now, as time came forward in time, these lubricants became more complicated and lasted longer. Now I have a Prius. Don't laugh. I have a Prius. 10,000 miles between oil changes. Yeah. Because you use a special type of synthetic oil that just doesn't get dirty, and the engine runs clean. Of course, I change it every 5,000 miles. I don't care what they say. When Vince was talking about oiling the doors in your car, that's real. The purpose of lubricants is to protect two wear surfaces from hitting each other, and because they will wear out. Just take two pieces of steel, wash them clean, so there's nothing on them, and start rubbing them together. Just in your hands, you could do this. Just start rubbing them together. After a few minutes, you're going to feel the heat in there. And if you had a electron microscope, you could look down and you would see what's called galling, and it would be microscopic balls between the two particles of scraped off metal, and this is what galling is. And those act like abrasives, and the more you move metal pieces back and forth, the more it wears. So the instant you hear a squeak, locate it and oil it.
Let me tell you what I do with our hinges that in the house. You know, we've got the back door is used the most. Then maybe the side door is second, and the front door hardly ever. But what I've done when I first installed the doors, I would take a punch and drive out the hinges, and then I would coat them with red synthetic grease in one of those 1 pound tubs. And what do I use? Well, I really like the SuperTech brand. It's less expensive. It really works well. It's red in color. You can get it at the Chinese factory outlet. And I coat the pins of the hinges on the doors with this red grease. And then I use a Q-tip, put some grease on the Q-tip, and put that inside the hinge before I drive the pin in, and then there's no more squeak for years. How many years? Oh, maybe 8. Maybe 5 to 8 years.
Pretty good. Yeah,
I really like the synthetic. However, you know, it's red, and it comes out red after you first drive the pins in. Then you wipe that off with a paper towel, and then you don't have red grease coming out on your paint. But that's what I do. I really like the red grease, and I use that same synthetic red grease for wheel bearings. Now, I have multiple tins or tubs of this in the 1 pound size. And when I put lug nuts or wheel bolts on our vehicles, I coat the threads. Now, this is not recommended, and I'm not suggesting you do what I do, but I do this because I take my wheels on and off and rotate the tires often on our vehicles. But I coat the threads so that they don't wear out metal-to-metal surfaces on the wheels. But you've got to torque them really well and make sure you accurately torque them, because if you don't do it right, they're going to loosen, and you may lose a wheel down the road. And you've got to check them off.
That's a good point you made on lug nuts, and because we do the same thing. We do the same thing here. And one of the things that I discovered years ago as a child, it was that these lug nuts would get rusted on, and you'd end up busting them, taking them off, and you'd have to replace the stud, which is not that big a deal, but still is a pain in the butt. So to this day, what we do, and we just change my tires, my wheels around, we take them off, take off the lug nuts, remove the wheel, or remove the tire, and we take a rag, wipe off each stud, and then wire brush it.
Right.
To make sure nothing's on it. And then I have a special molybdenum grease that I use when I repack everything. And I just take a little bit and put on there, and those lug nuts go on slicker than cat's snot, and then you torque it down, and then you drive around in 4 and 8 feet of snow and rain and salt and crud and gluck, and then 6 months later you're swapping the tires out, and the lug nuts come right off just like they should, and you do the same thing again for the summer tires.
Yeah, that's what we do. And here's another tip, since you're talking about really cool things to do. We have a parts washer, and it's like a 30-gallon steel drum with a sink on top of it and a lid. And they recommend you use this aqueous solution, a water-based solution. Well, I don't like that. I like using diesel fuel. But I also have some engine oil that's used that's mixed in there. But it comes out dark and cruddy. Well, I'll tell you the secret to fixing that problem when we come back. Kurt Wilson's with us. So, Kurt, what I did was I just went to eBay and I looked up parts washers, automotive parts washers. And frankly, they don't have anything like for sale like what I have. So I have this 30-gallon, I've had it for a couple decades, at least 20 years. 30-gallon steel drum with a sink on top, and this was manufactured as a parts washer. And it has a submersible pump that pumps the liquid from the 30-gallon drum up through a flexible metal pipe, if you will, that I can aim in the sink at the parts I want to wash. So the idea is I'm circulating the same diesel fuel that I use as a solvent. Well, the problem is that when the solvent gets dirty, that dirt goes into the oil drum, and as I start using the parts washer the next time, that oil that drips down from the sink drain into the drum stirs up the oil, and then the dirt at the bottom of the drum gets mixed in with the oil. Now I'm washing the parts with dirty oil. Well, with chunks and, the crud from the bottom. So what I did was I put a sock over the pump. And the sock covers the pump, and it filters out some of the crud. Well, it didn't do a really good job, and then the sock would get clogged. So what I decided to do was raise the height of the pump so it's about 5 inches or 4 inches above the bottom of the oil drum. And then I put in a gallon of water. And what happens is the oil, the diesel fuel, rides on top of the oil. On top of the water. And the crud settles down through the oil, the diesel fuel, into the water, and it stays there. So now I have clean oil. Now it gets the color of motor oil. It doesn't stay crystal clear, but it doesn't have any chunks in it anymore. And I've been doing that for at least 10 years now, and it absolutely works. Have you heard of that?
I got a question. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
That's what I had one for 25 years. Do you, in your drain, in your sink there, does it have a screen? Not really.
It's got a yes and no. It's sort of like a screen, but not as good as a screen. So the little parts don't. It prevents the little parts from falling through into the bottom.
Well, is it a round? It's round.
No, the drain is round. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it's removable. You can lift it up.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Then it's standard standard drain for these, and I forgot the name of the company that services these. They would come out every month.
Safety Clean.
Safety Clean, yes. Okay, contact them. They have a mesh that goes in there, and they also have a fabric filter. The whole thing slips right in there. It's very simple. Contact them and say, hey, I need the filtering stuff for this unit that I have.
Right.
And it's real, and it did, and it worked. I bought like a dozen different spare filters for it, the fabric ones, because they clog up, and it blow your mind how much crap that you wash off. We use it in the shop. We not just for mechanical parts, but for all firearms. Every firearm that came through there, that's how we cleaned them.
And we clean wrenches, nuts, bolts, sockets, ratchets, everything you possibly think of in the automotive shop, we clean in them. And it really, really works well. One other thought, we were talking about magnetic, using magnets, and we have been replacing our drain plugs on all of our engines with magnetic drain plugs now. All of them. And I think it's a great idea. How much do they cost? About $3.
Yeah, it's just the simplest thing that all cars used to have those. When I was a kid, every time I changed oil in any car, there was a little. I'm asking why are there pieces of metal stuck to my drain plug? Well, it's because it's a magnet. They don't do that anymore. By the way, the best lubricant to use and cleaner for firearms is Mobil 1 synthetic oil. It is phenomenal. You use it to clean your gun with, and then you coat your gun down. And the other thing, instead of lubricating, that lubricants are for, is also for treating metal surfaces so they don't corrode or rust, and that is vital.
Do you have a particular grade of Mobil 1 that you like? Is it like the European formula or the old car formula, or which one do you like?
No, just the cheapest stuff. Just the cheapest Mobil 1. A core will last somebody 10 years for cleaning guns and stuff. And then when I treat guns, when I do trigger jobs, I use a lubricant called Duralube.
There you go. Kurt, thanks so much. See you Sunday.